Here now with reaction law professor, Fox News contributor Jonathan Turley is with us. I want to make sure from the legal perspective that the analysis that we're giving is accurate. Now, there is an enumerated right to keep and bear arms. That would justify yesterday's decision on the Second Amendment. There is no enumerated right when it comes to the Constitution, but our framers, in their wisdom, anticipated such conflicts or moments, and hence we have the 10th Amendment. To a certain extent, I would argue the 9th Amendment that sends issues like this back to the state, which seems appropriate in this case, which is why I've always felt that Roe is bad law. Your thoughts?
Well, this is part of what the court was grappling with. People talk about Roe v. Wade as if it's an inviolate decision. In fact, Roe v. Wade itself was gutted. That privacy-based analysis that came out of the 1973 opinion was later removed in Casey, and there was a substitute which gave us the undue burden standard. But Roe was criticized by many liberal academics. I mean, people like Lawrence Tribe called it a smokescreen. As you saw, Ginsburg herself said it went too far. So this wasn't an inviolate decision. It wasn't a decision that was widely accepted in terms of its analysis. Now, there are arguments that can be made under the Constitution for this privacy or equal protection or due process right, but the court clearly didn't see that. And their argument was not that abortion should be unlawful. They're not saying anything about what should happen to abortion. They're saying more who should make that decision. And they said in the opinion that in 1973, they essentially stopped a political debate that was going on in the country. And what they said today was, have at it. Have that debate. Have 330,000 million Americans make the decision rather than 9 justices. And you're going to see a variation among the states. Most are likely to protect the right to abortion. I'll remind you, by the way, Sean, that in 1973, 30 states, when Roe was handed down, prohibited abortion in all but the most limited exceptions. So the country has moved on the issue. But this issue is now going to move back to the country, and people will make this decision state by state.
Is it a fair statement to say that the odds are zero that abortion is going to be illegal in the United States, knowing the current makeup of New York and New Jersey and Illinois and California, and even knowing, for example, Mississippi, which brought this before the Supreme Court? They just had a regulation, state regulation, of 15 weeks. Is that a fair statement?
Yes. In fact, the majority of people in this country are virtually guaranteed to live in a state where abortion is not going to be unlawful. You're going to have states like California, New York, Illinois that are obviously going to remain robustly protective states. And then even states with Republican governors like Virginia today, Senator Youngkin said, look, I'd like to pursue a Mississippi-like rule. And he says, but I'm also willing to compromise. Let's talk. Let's see what a reasonable compromise is. That was part of the vision that framers had for the federalism model, is that with 50 states today working on problems, there's a chance you can come up with creative compromises that out of all of that experimentation can come a resolution. And so I think that what you're going to see is you're going to have a number of states in the short term that are going to move on these trigger laws that are going to ban abortion except in very limited circumstances. But in the majority, for the majority of people in this country, the post-Roe world will not be dramatically different from the Roe world in the sense that they're living in states where that right will be protected.
Let me play for you Chuck Schumer on the steps of the Supreme Court, and I want to get your thoughts on this.
I want to tell you, Gorsuch, I want to tell you, Kavanaugh, you have released the whirlwind, and you will pay the price. You won't know what hit you if you go forward with these awful decisions.
You've released the whirlwind. You will pay the price. You won't know what hit you. Jonathan Turley, you're a great lawyer. If that was me on the steps of the Supreme Court, why do I think there'd be consequences that I'd have to face as a result of saying something like that? And I don't think you can get me out of it.
That was one of the lowest points that I have witnessed in my lifetime in terms of the Supreme Court and how it is being treated. To have the now Senate Majority Leader making threats, calling out 2 justices by name, really shocked all of us. And this is at an age of rage, you know, that people are addicted to rage. And certainly Senator Schumer knows that. I don't think he was calling for violence, but what he was doing was reckless. That there are people that hear those types of words and they take a much different meaning, a very violent meaning. We saw that in front of Justice Kavanaugh's house. And today, we're seeing the same failure of leadership as these politicians go out and say things that are not true. You know, Vice President Harris and Speaker Pelosi talking about how this opinion endangers things like multiracial or interracial marriages and contraceptive protections. The court went to an extraordinary degree to swat down those arguments. I don't think I've ever seen an opinion where the court repeatedly returns to this issue and says, this is not going to endanger those rights, and keeps on coming back and saying that we are going to extend this opinion to things like marriage or contraception is simply untrue. There was only one justice who said that there might be grounds to re-examine these cases. One. The 5 other justices in the majority expressly said that is not going to be the case. And yet that's being ignored. I had one law professor respond to me today and said, well, we just don't believe anything they say anyway. Well, then what's the point of legal analysis? If you're just going to say that everything's a lie, that certainly makes our task rather easy. But it's not a lie. These justices drew a very clear line. Abortion, in their view, is unique, and this does not extend to those rights.
Jonathan Turley, great analysis. Thank you, as always. Appreciate you being with us. Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.